This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are back to recap the World Series. We also talk about what is happening in the offseason of Major League Baseball, from Joey Votto leaving the Reds to all the new manager hires and so much more. We then shift on over to college football. We talk about the big games from this past week. We look ahead to the games this coming week and the college football playoff rankings. Finally, we finish up by talking about how good the Browns defense is. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and we are back. It is November, Josh.
It is
November, which means college football is coming to a head. All the craziness is about to happen. Even more craziness will be in the future. NFL is mid-season, is already in the midway through. You have the World Series that finished up. College basketball's kicked off with some crazy upsets already, both in women's and men's college basketball. NBA's kicked off. Josh, it is just a great time to be a sports fan. Truly is.
Great time to be a sports fan. One thing that's throwing me off though is all the Christmas ads that are coming up on TV, because I have vivid memories of like the summer being just last week still.
I remember when we were in my parents' house and we recorded an episode and it was like 85 degrees outside.
Yeah, the fall, it's really flown, dude, honestly, but it's not stopping me from getting into Christmas already.
I know.
Yes, I've already watched on your 4 or 5 Christmas movies already.
But see, this is the thing though, here in Europe, because Halloween's not, a big thing, as big of a thing. Literally, they had stuff out in like the end of October. Christmas stuff was out. Like it hurt my brain. It just hurt my brain a little bit. That's all I want to say. But I will say in the comments, please let us know if you are a Christmas before Thanksgiving person or you're a true after Thanksgiving is when I start getting ready for Christmas. Because personally, I am after Thanksgiving, then I'll play Christmas music. And I'm not touching it.
That's how I almost always am too. But just with how fast time moves anymore, I feel like if
you're getting old,
don't
Josh.
Get in on it early enough, it's like I only celebrated Christmas for 2 days and not a whole month. So if I go 2 months, maybe it'll feel more like 2 weeks and then longer than what I typically do.
Josh, you're getting old. That's
I know.
what it is.
I ain't playing this. It's just I was scrolling through the channels and Elf was on TV, so I was like, I guess I'm watching.
I was just cringy at that point. I was like sitting in school, like before school started today. I was like going there, I'm like, what? I was just like,
and then it snowed on Halloween too, which also just weird, further set the mood.
Dude, the weather gets crazier. I mean, you know what? It's crazy as what Ohio's identity is in voting. I'm going to leave it at that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at the news. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, that's my political statement for the day. But moving on, Josh, you briefly just said, we talked about the World Series. Beforehand, we were talking about the World Series, and Josh, hats off to you, my man. You were correct on your prediction of the World Series and World Series MVP, which, by the way, I don't think any time on this podcast have we ever gotten both the MVP and the champion right in any sport. I think this is the first time ever that's happened.
This is I think the second or third World Series we've talked about, and obviously we've talked about a lot of championship series outside of that in other sports. But yeah, as fun as it was
to hit a home run.
As fun as it was to get the team right, I'm more excited that I got Corey Seager winning World Series MVP, right? Just because you have to first off have the right team, and then you got like 25 guys.
Did help they lost Garcia.
It did. Garcia had the walk-off home run, obviously, in game 1, which definitely had him in the running, but Seager had the home run to send the extra innings to begin with. So you could even argue neck and neck there. But yeah, Seager just continued to make big hits and big plays. And
have you ever wondered, like in these awards, Josh, who votes for these? You know what I mean? Like, have you ever wondered, like who truly is voting for this? Like, is it just based on like what the fans react to? You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if they have a guy that goes through social media is just like, all right, this guy's got enough hype.
Yeah, because
it's interesting.
If that's the case, it's like, how did they vote without social media in the past?
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Is there like a guy that just sits in the stands? No, this is what I think. I think there's a guy in the stands, kind of like Connor Stallions. Oh, wait, sorry, too soon. That just sits there and he just bases off reactions of the fans. Like, I feel like there's a guy up there with a clipboard. It's like, 25% to this guy, right? Like, it's weird to me. Like, they just come up with this magical number of like, hey, this guy wins. Like,
sometimes World Series MVPs can be like someone you never would have guessed either, because they just heated up at the right time, or maybe they're like the 7th or 8th guy in the lineup and they had a couple clutch hits. But Seager is
it's the things you
right up
never
there
know,
in the
man.
argument, or in the discussion, I should say, for
Yeah.
Mr. October, greatest playoff performers of all time.
Oh,
Like, a guy just rises to the occasion.
no, I agree. I just think I've just never thought about that until this year. I was thinking about that. Like,
Yeah,
how
I mean,
do they figure this out?
yeah,
Like, it's not
I
like
don't know.
anything else. But anyway, speaking of the World
Writers
Series,
vote. I don't know.
that could be. Well, we don't trust the writers. Let's talk about this World Series, Josh, and then kind of we can recap kind of the news here in the last few days with some things going on. But what was your thought on the series? Do you think entertainment level was it where you wanted it to be, or do you feel like because it was two not big name teams, people maybe didn't watch as much as maybe they would if it was someone else?
I think baseball people enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I
Obviously,
did. I
the
loved it.
ratings were one of the lowest all time, which sucked considering how the ratings in the regular season were up, and it's got to be because of the markets. But I think baseball
And
people
football
enjoyed
too.
it. We saw some close games. We saw some pitchers duels. We saw some home
Yeah.
runs. We got to see some star power and some young guys like Corbin Carroll come in and ball out as well. So I think baseball people
Yeah.
enjoyed it at the end of the day, and it was a fun World Series to watch
No,
on my end.
I think we've also talked about it too, Josh. Is like parody in sports just makes it more enjoyable for true sports fans to watch. Like if you're just a fan of like, I don't know, just like the big teams or like, you know, the most popular players, like it's not as fun. But for fans that are from small market teams, like, you know, people would say, well, Texas is not a small market team. Yes, but I'm talking about like Arizona, right? Or if the Reds got there, when the Royals won it, right? You know, when the Guardians win it at some point.
Big win.
When that happens, right? Like I think, yeah, you're not gonna have as many views, but I think in general, like the true, like you said, true baseball fans love these kind of things because it's the unknown. Like who would have thought these are the two teams that would have made the World Series? No one did. Right. So that's what makes it more entertaining, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, when you make changes to like try to attract more casuals, I guess, like when you
It's
actually
gonna happen.
get to see the
Yeah.
real product, it's like those people are gonna go away.
Yeah, of course. And again, do I expect the attendance to be where it's at and the views to be where it's at next year as what it was this year? I don't think so. I think there will be a little bit less. Not that's a bad thing. I think it's just generally, like you said, I think there's just going to some people that are just like, okay, we saw it, kind of cool. I'm going to stop watching. Right? Like I that's just my gut feeling. I don't know if it will happen or not, but it is fascinating. But do you think the right team won the World Series? Yes or no, Josh?
What's the right team?
Like, I mean, if you look at this series, like, do you feel like what do you think would have been more of an enticing story coming out, like the Arizona winning or the Texas winning? Do you feel like, you know what, this is I'm okay with this team winning the World Series this year?
I mean, I thought Texas was the better team coming into it. The
Yeah,
regular season record speaks that. The star power and the experience speaks that. And like I said, I picked Texas because I thought they had the higher ceiling, and Arizona's been enjoying a lot of comebacks. They
which
had to
is
heat up
awesome.
at the right
Yeah,
moment, and it is awesome to watch. But I mean, if you're talking about like it did the better team win, I think so.
yeah, I agree too. I think it's enjoyable to watch when the better team wins every once in a while, right? Not always the underdog, but yeah, that's World Series. About all we can say really about the World Series. I mean, you guys have watched it probably. You guys have checked it out. But Josh, there's been some other news going on around baseball lately. Some of the news, and we'll talk about it for you this a little bit. Craig Counsell is no longer
Managing
with
the
the Brewers,
Cubs.
which, by the way, the fact that the Brewers never truly released him from his contract and just kind of like let him interview is the weirdest thing in my book. Like either you let him go or like sign him to an extension, right? Like that's just always been weird to me.
It's like when in college football, head coaches give
Yeah,
permission, or the athletic department gives permission
it's
for
just
like a coordinator to
weird.
go and interview.
It's like either you want him or you don't. You know, like coordinator is a little more understandable, like bench coach is a little more understandable, but like your actual manager, it's like now it's limbo, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to see who the Brewers get. The weirder part is that like he goes to the Cubs, which I think for a guy
In the
that played,
division.
yeah, the guy that played for the Brewers for many years, coached with the Brewers, like, dude, I'm sorry, but that's like, you know, Ryan Day going to Michigan or Harbaugh going to Ohio State, right? It's just weird. You know, it's just a weird feeling. And I think it's gonna be weird for a lot of Brewers fans. They're gonna be like watching games next year, go, this is just wrong in
I
so many
think
levels.
I think the funnest thing out of all of it is I saw something where they said Council made $22 million in his career as a player, and now he's going to make 40 as a
Oh yeah,
manager.
it's ridiculous. He's making what 8.5 million or something like that.
5 years, 40 million, so about 8 even on average.
That is just mind boggling to as some of my non baseball friends say, to stand in a dugout. So
To stand in the dugout, yeah.
which is true. I mean, they've got a point. I mean, comparison, Bill Belichick makes like 20 million a year, so I mean, he's not up in that range yet.
He's a head coach and a GM though, so he's doing a little bit more.
He shouldn't be a GM, but that's a story for another day. So we look at the obviously the Cubs signed Craig Counsell. David Ross has been fired, which I'm interested to see where David Ross ends up, because I don't think he did a poor job this past year. I don't think he did a poor job.
That's what shocked me at first. When they said that the Cubs hired Counsell, I was like, when did David Ross get fired? I totally missed that.
And I'll be honest with you, I would not be shocked if David Ross goes to the Brewers. That seems like a good fit too.
A manager swap, not even a trade. It's just both get like fired and then go to those other teams.
So I mean, that will be the interesting one. And speaking of catchers, this is a pretty big one. We'll sit and talk about it for a little bit. Is the Indians? Sorry, Guardians. Sorry, my bad. Politically correct. Sorry,
Cleveland.
The Guardian. Yeah, Cleveland. They go for a catcher, not a catcher that any of us saw coming. I don't think I thought maybe Joe Girardi, maybe when I heard catcher, but no, it's Stephen Vogt.
Stephen Vogt. Yep.
Who would have thought? I did not see that coming.
I can tell you, I never thought that Craig Counsell was in play, even though they did.
Oh yeah, for
him.
sure.
I thought that was always
too expensive.
That was going to be money. Yeah. By the way, $40 million the Cubs gave Counsell to manage. Cleveland has only given out 6 contracts to players worth 40 or more million in their entire existence. Jason Kipnis, Michael Bourne, Nick Swisher, Andres Jimenez, Jose Ramirez, and Edwin Encarnacion. That's it.
Sad.
Nobody's ever been given a contract higher than 40 million. Yep. And those guys. So yeah, I knew Counsell was out of it. I figured it was just leverage. Maybe Milwaukee would extend him. I was surprised when he actually did leave though. But Vogt, yep. So catchers.
How do you feel?
Indifferent. I knew it was going to be a boring hire because Cleveland never pays for players. So why would they pay for a big name manager? But with the guy that they got, you're getting a former catcher. Catchers are some of the smartest players on teams because of all the research they got to do with signs and working with different pitchers, and they tend to be great leaders on teams as it is, captains, those kind of things. So I guess he checks those kind of boxes of like leadership qualities and things like that. As far as like managing, we'll see how he does. I know he's been beloved as an assistant and even as a teammate, made a couple all-star teams, I want to say, when he played, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's nothing that's going to excite me, but it's not one that I necessarily hate either.
Do you think that you're gonna see that Francona just missing him? Do you think that's gonna be felt a lot next year, or do you feel like it's gonna be a pretty easy transition?
We'll see. I think it definitely was time for Terry to go. He just would get attached to certain guys, and then the health thing too. I mean, it seemed like every other week he had some kind of illness that was keeping him out, and someone else was managing the team instead.
One of the greatest coaches, one of the greatest managers of all time, though,
for sure, and one of the most successful Cleveland managers of all time. But I just think it was time to go.
He was there 10 years?
Probably, 10 years. I think around 2012, 2013 is when they brought him in.
Which was a great hire at the time, by the way. I even applauded that at the time.
It was like at the time when they hired him, it impressed me because, like I told you, we don't usually go out and make splash hires like that. And Francona just finished managing with Boston, had a couple rings to his credit. And I don't know if he didn't have the Cleveland connection beforehand that he would have ever gone to manage there. But not. I mean, the 10 years has been fun, but I think it definitely was time to go. You just see some of those managers that have been around for a while. You see it with Tony La Russa, even just kind of get stuck in old ways, don't adapt. As much as I hate the analytics side of things, I think you got to use a little bit of that. You can't just be attached to guys and your guys and not adjust the lineup based on the way things are going and just be stuck, like not making changes that need to be made or like waiting too long to like make a move, and just disconnect between manager and front office. And it was time to go, and it didn't have to be any kind of ugly firing or anything where like we just completely sink to the bottom of the division and have to let him go. So I wish the best for Terry, and probably retirement is what it's going to be, but we'll see what happens with Vogt. I think it's a change that needed to be made, and if Vogt's the right guy or not.
And he's a younger guy too. So maybe you can have him here for a few years, and it's not like an old dude that's coming in and coaching, which I think helps. There's obviously some other coaching changes. I believe the Mets are hiring the Yankees bench coach, I believe, if I'm right.
His name escapes me right now, but
not a crazy hire to me. A fascinating hire, but to me a little non-Medi. Is that I don't know if that's a phrase.
What I just tell you with Cleveland, we never go out and make splash hires, and the Mets always got a splash hire.
And it wasn't a splash hire
or a splash sign.
And I know Buck Showalter, I guess, says he's not done managing. Supposedly, I don't know what that means. Some other news. I know Ron Washington is
interviewing
with the Angels. Who he's like what 85? Like he's got to be older than Dusty Baker. Like he
pretty
has to
old.
Be.
I mean, I thought he was done managing, just cool with being like third base coach, and he's been legendary at that.
He's been literally like he's like 80 years old now. He's been around the game of baseball for 50 years. So you have that one. Obviously, Sean Casey is not returning as the Yankee hitting coach, which I even forgot that happened until like 2 days ago. Grady Sizemore is going over to the White Sox in coaching. So a lot of different changes happening in the world of baseball.
Yeah, and it's Carlos Mendoza that's the manager of the Mets now.
Is there any other topic of baseball that you wanted to talk about there, Josh? That's happening.
I think that pretty much nailed all the baseball stuff. We're gonna see. Bellinger. I forgot. Cody Bellinger opted out of his option with the Cubs, so he's a free agent. We're gonna find out where Shohei Ohtani is gonna be signing here, maybe in the next couple months too, and if it's gonna be that record.
You did want to hear my thoughts on something, right, Josh?
That is right. One more. My team is not the only team in Ohio that made a notable move.
Yes, sir.
What did the Cincinnati Reds do?
They declined the team option for Joseph Daniel Votto. He would have been owed, I think, $24 million or $25 million this coming year.
Which, if you're the Reds, it totally makes sense.
It makes sense. I guess I'll be honest with you. I'm a little surprised they didn't like go ahead and offer him, be like, hey, we will decline this, but hey, we want to offer you like a league minimum, or maybe like a 3-year, like a 1-year, $3 million deal, something small. It's just it's a little bit of I guess a heartbreak in some cases. Me growing up as an Ohio State, as a Reds fan, right? Growing up as a Reds fan, it's weird. I don't know how to describe it, if that makes sense. It's kind of one of those things where I feel like that we could use him in the clubhouse, because you've even admitted it multiple times. Like you agreed with me on like how he shouldn't be getting paid $25 million anymore, but you also agreed that like he's a very good leader in the clubhouse, and you need that kind of guy with his young team.
Plus, it's like just Joey Votto needs to be a lifetime Red.
Yeah, of course. Like the only other place I see him going, Josh, is Toronto, because he's from Toronto. But I don't think they're going to go out and pay him $4 or $5 million to come hit 205 with 15 home runs and 50 RBIs. I don't think they're paying him that. Now I do believe there's going to be a team that either does like a minor league option with a major league, thing. But I know Joey Votto, and he's kind of prideful. I don't think he'll take a minor league deal. It's either he gets a major league deal or he'll retire. I think that those are honestly his two options, because I don't see him taking a minor league deal. I think he knows if he can't be offered a major league deal, then he knows he's done. And he said that. He said that if when I know my body's done, I'm done. I don't know about you. I'll read you his. I have his career stats here, and I want to just read these to you, Josh, and you tell me yes or no if this man is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm just letting them load real quick here, and here we go. So let me give me while I'm doing this, give me your thoughts on Joey Votto. Maybe since you grew up in Ohio around the Reds, watching the Reds every once in a while, give me your thoughts on him and his career.
Yeah, Joey Votto, I've said it for a little while. I think he's one of the most likable guys in baseball, even rooting for like the in-state rival Cleveland Indians. It's like I respect Joey Votto and his game. I thought he was patient at the plate. He drew a lot of walks. I think he might still be top 10 all time in on base percentage because of it. And then up until he got old, I mean, the man was consistent, just consistently hitting around 300 with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. And there's only a couple other first basemen in the National League that seemed like that they could do that with him, like Albert Pujols when he was over there with St. Louis, and Paul Goldschmidt with Arizona, and now St. Louis consistently doing that, and Freddie Freeman hitting around there. It's like there's not a lot of guys over there. So it's like Votto was a guy that seemed to be, consistent, patient, respectable, great leader, all those kind of things. It's like, well, to me, I'd put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what his career stats are, but I think I've seen enough.
I'll read you his stats. So here we go. He played 2,056 career games with the Reds. He scored 1,171 career runs. He had 2,135 career hits, 459 career doubles, 356 career home runs, 1,144 career RBIs, 1,365 career walks. Crazy. He batting average was 294, and that's a caveat because up until about 2000, after 2018, he never hit above 265. So if you take away those last 4 or 5 years,
the prime years were
the man, he's hitting over 315, 320 every year. His on base percentage, even with, like I said, those last 5 years, which he never went over 400 on base percentage, he still has a 409 career on base percentage. He has a 511 career slugging percentage, 920 OPS plus of 144. This man in his career led the major leagues 7 times in on-base percentage. 7 times. He led in walk 4 times. So with hearing those stats, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Again, it'll have to depend on who's all on the ballot with him. I don't know if it's undeniable first ballot. I mean, there's only a few guys that I feel like are ever.
I think he'll be like a second. I think he'll be like a second year guy. I feel like he'll be like, because the thing is, the Reds have such a big fan base. I think he might slip in like second or third year. Like I look at those stats, man. Just think about it, dude. If he doesn't have the injury plagued last 5 years, imagine what his stats would have been like.
For
like
sure.
He would be hitting over 300 and having a very high on base percentage. I mean, this man for what 8 years? I think us being in high school and college, I think for like 8 years. I mean, it was Joey Votto was the dude at first base in the National League. There was no one better than him at hitting, getting on base than Joey Votto.
What do they say in Moneyball? He may not hit, 320 or whatever, but he gets on base.
Oh, even this past year. I mean, I think he only had like a 350 or 360 on base percentage the last couple of years combined. But dude, that's better than like half the league, man. Like half the league ain't getting 360.
Not with the amount that they strike out and walk now these days.
And again, I don't know. Did you hear his video? Did you listen to his video at all?
No, I didn't.
So I listened to his video, and like I've never seen Joey Votto like almost cry, and he almost cried in the video. Like I believe that Joey Votto loves Cincinnati. Like I believe that he said some amazing things, like how he still has never gotten used to the driving in Cincinnati. I don't know if you've driven through Cincinnati; it's impossible. But
once.
He literally said he's been there for 17 years. He still hasn't got used to it yet. So I don't know. I'm gonna miss Joey. To wrap up what I was saying, I'm gonna miss Joey, man. I'm gonna miss having him around. It's gonna really suck if I see him in another uniform. I just hope it's not NL Central. Like I don't want to see him like 80 times a year. I don't. I just go somewhere else. Go to Toronto. Finish your career in Toronto. But man, you will always be a Red, and I mean that, Joey. You always be a Red. As much as I gave you a hard time the last few years, like you are a legend. You're an MVP, a Gold Glover, like an 8-time All-Star. You are what it means to be a Red, and you have wore the jersey well. So hats off, Joey Votto. You deserve it. You deserve a good retirement.
Yes, sir. Well, that'll probably be the last of our baseball talk, unless any of our teams make splash signs and trades. But
the Reds splash signings.
Yeah, that's why I was just gonna make a joke about it. It's like, but we don't spend any money, so we'll probably just be talking about. Talking about whoever paid Shohei Ohtani a record $900 million contract.
I mean,
that'll probably be the next time baseball comes up.
Guardians won 2 Gold Gloves back-to-back years, right? The same guys won back-to-back years this year.
Jimenez and Kwan. Yep.
And the Reds have one guy up for an award, and that is a Steer for a Silver Slugger at the utility position.
Spencer Steer,
That
baby.
annoys me so much. The utility thing just drives me insane. Like why?
Yeah.
Like why? Like how? I'm questioning Josh. If you won the utility player Silver Slugger, how seriously do you think your teammates would take you? You were the utility player Silver Slugger.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that the way things were going too, Ellie De La Cruz would be in the Rookie of the Year finalist too, but just really fell off. I mean, he
Oh,
continued to
fell
make
off. Yeah.
the insane plays, but just no
Well,
consistency. And
technically, I
the
was
way that Corbin Carroll played, it's like
yeah.
he's going to win Rookie of the Year
Well,
anyways.
I was shocked Spencer Steer wasn't in the final because he's a rookie. Even though he played a little bit last year, he's a rookie by games. So I was very shocked he wasn't in the final running there. Anyways, that is enough baseball diamond talk. Let's move into some college football, and we will finish up by talking about the Browns because I think we both are a little hyped about, well, they did play the Cardinals. But anyways, we're still going to talk about the Browns.
Yes.
But let's talk about college football. Let's break it down.
College football playoff poll is out. And
Can you go over it for us?
The top 8 are unchanged. And I'll review. It goes Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. And some of those games that we talked about last week, Ben, that had potential to shake the playoff poll up did in fact do that. And there were a couple other ones that just missed the cut, such as the Texas-Kansas State game that went to overtime. Ole Miss escapes Texas A&M. I think it's like a final touchdown drive or something like that, but they win that game by 3. Maybe not and another elimination game possibly between Alabama and LSU. Alabama comes out on top there. Sucked to see Jaden Daniels get hurt in that one because that basically ended the game effectively. And then we saw the shootout with Washington and USC. I thought USC was going to come out for that one, and it's again the defense, and not even necessarily Michael Penix that won the game. No. Dylan Thompson rushed for 256 yards after not rushing for over 100 at any point in his career.
And they finally fired Grinch, USC.
They did finally
fired him.
Finally fired him.
What did it take?
I don't know why it took so long, what connection Lincoln Riley had, or what dirt Grinch had on Riley to keep him around that long. But since you brought up Alex Grinch, Ben, would you rather, if you don't choose when you die, have Ohio State hire Brian Ferentz as an offensive coordinator or bring back Alex Grinch as your defensive coordinator?
Oh, that just hurts. Oh, wow. Choose one. That is a great question, Josh. You hit the point on this one.
Yeah, I have heard.
Man, I want to say this. This is my thing, though. This is what I think is.
Okay. I know where I would go.
No, I'm going to stick with Knowles at defense because I like the way the defense is looking right now, and also I've dealt with Grinch before. I know what I'm getting when he's at Ohio State.
I see.
I would take a crappy offense that can get me maybe 10, 17 points at the most and have Knowles' defense, which has been
if you had this solid Ohio State defense with Knowles.
Yes. Okay. If I had last year, it'd be different. But with this year and how the offense is already like, it's not amazing, but it's good. I would be able to take, and the thing is, you never said about talent, and we have a Ohio State talent. So even with Ferentz, I feel like he could maybe do something with the talent.
So this is what I'm thinking. We've seen at least teams coordinated by Alex Grinch get into conference championship games and into playoff games. We just know what the ceiling's always going to be because eventually they're going to run into someone that's going to score more than them. So I think I might go with Alex Grinch as a defensive coordinator and leave Brian Ferentz to somebody else because at least we'll score enough to like be fun to watch and maybe go 10-2, get lucky and go 11-1. But obviously nobody wants to hire him. It's going to be interesting to see like if they get rehired again, like honest. In Power 5 jobs.
Let's be honest,
as coordinators.
Let's be honest, Ryan Day hiring Ferentz. Ryan Day already does this now, where he chose Hartline to be offense coordinator, and he still calls plays. So it does not matter. It does not matter who the offense coordinator is.
He will not give him more responsibility than he deserves.
Exactly.
So that's kind of an overview of the playoff poll and some of the games that happened last week.
Are you shocked? Are you shocked it stayed the same?
The top 8?
Yes.
Not really. I mean, the top 5 there stayed undefeated, and I mean Florida State did struggle with Pitt a little bit, but no Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson, and they turned things up in the second half. So I guess it is what it is. Michigan obviously handles Purdue. Georgia That was actually another one that
That was a
I
close
forgot to
game at
mention.
one point.
Georgia and Missouri, yeah, very close in the first half, but eventually Georgia pulls away. Missouri just lacks the depth that it ultimately
Yeah.
takes to compete in a game like that, but a very good team still. And then Ohio State and Rutgers started
Rutgers
off
is
kind of
better than you
ugly.
think. Rutgers
Yeah,
is
I
better
think
than you think. I
I'm
will
okay
tell you
with
that.
saying that too. Rutgers is 6-3 now, and I mean I know Marvin Harrison had 2 touchdowns, but they held him to just 25 yards, and they made life difficult for Ohio State.
I'll be honest with you, this game, and I think you can agree with me, Josh. Like, I think people doubting this Rutgers defense. This Rutgers defense is not a bad defense. It's a very solid defense. I think against the run they struggle a lot. You saw that against Michigan. You saw that against Ohio State. But let's be honest, Josh. Travion Henderson is the dude. This dude is a dude. He had a 65-yard reception, by the way, on a dump down pass 3 yards past the line of scrimmage. He turns into a 65-yard touchdown, not a touchdown, almost a touchdown play. They hadn't let up a 40-yard play. By the way, Ohio State and Rutgers went in, not giving up a 40-yard play. Ohio State gave up a 40-yard play on a fumble Ruski, fake QB sneak, handed it between the legs. Guy grabs it, runs it 40 yards. And then Rutgers gives up their 40-yard play with a check down that they've just missed 2 tackles, and he takes it 65 yards. So welcome to college football. It does makes no sense. Yeah. But no, overall, I think the game went the way I think we thought it would go, maybe a little longer than we thought. It does worry me. I'll talk about this when we preview Ohio State later on. My biggest worry still is the offense is very slow at the beginning, and it's going to come back to bite them at some point. They've got to get that figured out. But I thought the offensive line played well for the most part. I thought Kyle McCord shaky on some throws. I mean, what can you do? Marvin Harrison, I mean, he still caught 2 touchdown passes. Not having Stover killed them, him being hurt. No Latham Ransom. You had no Denzel Burke. You lost Eichenberg. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Ohio State is so beat up, Josh. This team has literally got I think 12 guys on the injury report this week. And thank goodness they're playing Michigan State. Thank goodness they have a break where they can kind of rest some of these guys. But yeah.
One other note I'll mention on Travion Henderson too. I know that you and I were kind of out on him last year, but turns out maybe he just wasn't fully healthy. I know he had his grievances that he kind of aired at the end of the season with them rushing him back, and we were watching him try to make cuts and just falling down and just not being anywhere close to what he looked like as a freshman. But I think now, yeah, we are seeing a fully healthy Travion Henderson, and we've seen his last 3 games. He's gone over 100 yards in all of them, and he's looking much like the guy that we saw his freshman year and what I thought he could have become, and the back that we always believed he could be.
Can you imagine if McCord just gets a little more consistent and you have that running game with Henderson, and then you have Harrison and Ibuka, and once Ibuka and Stover get back healthy, can you imagine this offense? Once you get them going, that's terrifying. And that's just, get this offense going, man. I'm telling you. And if freaking G. Scott doesn't drop basically a wide open pass, and Fleming, you saw that drop though, right?
Yes.
Whereas the middle of the field, I mean, there was no one within 20 yards of him. It's a touchdown if he catches it and just drops it. I'm like, guys, come on. Jeez.
So before we fully recap last week, I'll mention some other. We just talked a little bit about some of the teams up at the top and some of the teams that were close. Yeah. So Air Force loses after we aired how mad we were about them being only 25, and then it's like, well, why'd you have to do that, man? Why'd you have to do that?
I think Joe Klatt said something interesting where he said, in these Air Force Navy or Air Force Army Navy, it does not matter what the records are. It is like a brutal war. They want to beat each other, and it does not matter what the record is. And the funny thing is, it's always funny to watch Air Force versus Army because they both run triple option. And it's like the most boring game to watch because it's just hand the ball off every single play. And it's just funny to me.
The other game that shocked me, but I said it wouldn't, but it really did at the end of the day, was Notre Dame losing to Clemson.
I know. Hurt Ohio State.
Sam Hartman playing as bad as he did.
He's been inconsistent, man. He's had good games and he's had really bad games.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was thinking about was Ohio State, because largely they're number 1 because of resume. But what if Notre Dame ends up being like a 8-4 team? You know?
I know. Yeah.
But at the end of the season, they're gonna have a win over Michigan too, and they're gonna have a win over whoever wins the West. Maybe it's Iowa, who could be 9 or 10 wins, which is a solid win still. So still in the running for one of the better resumes there. Another game, the final scheduled Bedlam. Did you get to watch any of that game?
I did watch some of it.
That was happening at the same time that Georgia Missouri was playing, and I thought that was going to be the game that I watched. But in the second half, I ended up watching almost all Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
Ollie Gordon is a freak. That man is a absolute freak.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look, by the way, at Derrick Henry versus him stats, when Derrick Henry won the Heisman, Ollie Gordon has better stats than him right now. Just think about that.
Yeah. Leading all Power 5 players too right now, I believe, in total yards.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, dude.
Or all-purpose yards or something like that. So definitely balling out. And Oklahoma State stays hot, man. That jumped them up 7 spots from, I think they were 22nd before, up to 15th now.
Didn't they lose to South Alabama this year?
South Alabama week 2, I think it was. And they had mentioned it in the game when Oklahoma State started off 2-2. Ollie Gordon actually met with Mike Gundy and begged to, or not, maybe begged isn't the right word, but insisted on more snaps. Pleaded, saying, I can do things to help this team out. And I mean, it's a totally different looking offense than what Oklahoma State typically runs. It's rejuvenated. It's got energy. They're heating up right now. They could be in that Big 12 championship game with Texas at the end of the season.
And comments proved me wrong. I was too high on Oklahoma because it showed it's the same Oklahoma. It's the same Oklahoma. Go out, we win a couple games, then our defense stinks and the offense fails. I mean, that's just kind of the Oklahoma story.
I was waiting to see if they would fix that because I knew what the situation was defensively. Like, this is something that's going to need to get fixed. And I mean, granted, they only allowed 27 in this Oklahoma State game, I think it was, but still, I mean, now they're a team that's 7-2. I mean, I think there's still a path to get to that Big 12 championship game. Like, the Big 12 is actually still very up in the air.
It's thin because I don't think.
Well, here's the deal right now. Texas
doesn't look good.
8-1,
they don't look
but
good.
They don't look good, and we don't know when Quinn Ewers is coming back yet.
Arch Manning.
And then you've got Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Oklahoma all at 7-2 right now.
Yeah, it's true.
But that's another thing too is will Arch Manning end up taking over eventually? Have you seen enough from Malik Murphy already?
Yeah.
And then one more game. I did not get to stay up and watch this because turns out I couldn't even stay up to watch the full Washington USC game because of how long it was taking. But Arizona, Ben, upsets UCLA. They're 6-3 now and finally getting respect by the polls. They are a good team. They've beaten number 19 UCLA last week, number 11 Oregon State the week before, pounded number 19 Washington State the week before that, almost beats USC, almost beats Washington, only loses that game by 7. This is a good football team, Ben. And it was a game that I thought Arizona could win and did, and now they're getting in the polls, and this is what a fun team, man. And they're doing it almost all without Jaden Delora, their starting quarterback too, which is what's really impressive.
I will say this. I want to say something before we move on to this current week. Would you think I'm crazy if I say this, that Rutgers deserves to be in the top 25 and not Iowa?
That Rutgers deserves to be in the top 25.
Just look at those two teams. If you look at what Rutgers, the losses they have versus how Iowa has literally done nothing really, if you look at it overall. I have this, I just came to a conclusion. I think Rutgers deserves that spot, at least the 25 or 24 or something like that.
If you're looking at just resumes, I suppose Iowa's best wins this season are Iowa State.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can you count Wisconsin? Like, is that a good win anymore? I mean, with Tanner Mordecai at the time, I guess it's
okay. Yeah, sure.
So if you can, and then they have like the shutout to Penn State, obviously, and then they lay the egg against Minnesota and lose that 12-10. But what are Rutgers' notable wins, Ben? Because that's what it's going to ultimately come down to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I don't care if they're going to just go and get swept, by Penn State, Ohio State, and like they lose to all the teams that they should, I guess. But do they have that win that you can guarantee me?
No, I don't, and I don't think they do. And again, this is just me more my gut, like my gut saying, if I look at those two teams, the way they're playing, I trust. I mean, Rutgers quarterback is terrible, but I look at the run game they have. I look at their defense, and that's just kind of the way I view it. Because I think Iowa's offense is just atrocious, and their defense is okay.
Yeah. We've got a couple common opponents here. Wisconsin did beat Rutgers, but Rutgers also beat Northwestern way worse than the 10-7 showing that Iowa had last week against them.
Dude. That was just awful.
Man.
They're the most boring games to watch, man. Like, honestly, it's the most boring game to watch. And that's going to be in the Big Ten championship game. Just think about it. Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State will be at home. Two of those three teams will be at home while Iowa makes the championship game. Just think about that. Sad.
Well, enough of talking about bad football. Let's talk about some of the good football that we're going to get to watch this weekend. Yes. So we'll start off with the games baby. We're going to start off with the games that are going to impact the playoff poll next week the most. And we'll kick it off with the big noon game, Michigan at Penn State.
Big noon on Fox.
Big noon on Fox. Michigan at Penn State,
yes, Ben. I got you.
We've been waiting to see Michigan get tested all season long, and we're finally going to get to see it. We know what Penn State's got up their sleeve against Ohio State, the 20-12 final over there, and Penn State's going to get to be the home team this year. Both defenses, some of the best in the country.
Michigan's faced no one.
Michigan has faced no one, granted.
But
I also think that the Michigan offensive identity this year is looking way different than what we're used to. I'm curious to see how that goes against, a good defense, actually.
I'm going to come out and say this. I have been wrong by this the last 2 years. I've been wrong by this. I predicted the last 2 years that Penn State would beat Michigan, and they end up not. I'm saying right now, and I'm going to say this with about 90% certainty. This is at Penn State. It's going to be a whiteout. It's going to be loud. This Michigan team has faced absolutely nobody. And when I mean absolutely nobody, they have faced no one. And I do not want to hear from Michigan fans, when we play, no. When you play someone, come talk to me. Like that's my biggest issue. When your strength of schedule is 111th, okay? There's 130 teams in the FBS. Let's just put that in perspective here, okay? So for me, I think Penn State goes into their home stadium. They want revenge, not only losing to Michigan the last few years, but losing to Ohio State, which they felt they were the better team. They wanted to win that game. They want this revenge. And so I'm going to say Penn State walks into their home stadium and says, this is our turf, this is our house, and Penn State's going to win a score of 14-10. Penn State. 14-10. Because Penn State's defense is a lot better than what people give them credit for. They held Ohio State to basically nothing in that whole game.
So this is what I'm looking at, Ben.
Oh, boy. Here goes the analytic guy.
We've seen Penn State the last 2 weeks after Ohio State play well against, I believe it's Maryland and Indiana.
Yes.
But we've seen what this Penn State offense, the younger guys, your Drew Allers, your Katron Allens, Nicholas Singletons, all your sophomores, what happens when they go up against a defense? And granted, Ohio State's defense, we both think is the best in the country, I think.
Yes.
But I think Michigan's defense is right up there as well. And we're going to need to see a much better, I guess, performance from Drew Aller and what we saw against Ohio State.
Of course, I agree.
We're gonna have to see Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen get
actually run the ball.
The 9 carries that they got, correct, yeah. And plus just I think you do have a point though that Michigan, it's a veteran team. They've been in big games before, but the first one of the season always is a little something. So I think that maybe Penn State gets off to, that solid start or a faster start than maybe what Michigan will be. I think Michigan's going to adjust, and they're going to come in here and win this game something along the lines of maybe, do I dare say even like a 31?
No, I don't think so. I think Penn State defense is like, even if the offense is struggling, you saw how the Penn State defense tried to lock down as much as they could against Ohio State.
But I also think Michigan's offense is a little better than Ohio State's right now.
I just have a hard time feeling at Penn State. Like if it was at Michigan, I agree with you. But at Penn State, and you know how that crowd basically lasts the whole game, no matter what the game situation is.
It is very loud. It is very loud.
I would say if you said like upper 20s, I'd be more. But 30 or more, I'm like that seems.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give Michigan 31 in this one, and I think Penn State's gonna get. They got 12 against Ohio State. I'm going to go ahead and give them 17 in this one, a 31-17 final for Michigan.
But do you think with this game that we will learn more, maybe some negatives from Michigan that we have not learned so far? Like, do you think we're going to see things that go, ooh, Michigan's not as strong as what we thought they were in this area? Or do you think this is like Michigan's not going to show a weakness?
I think the one thing that everyone wants to see is J.J. McCarthy the most.
That's true, yeah.
because it definitely looks like they've moved more towards the passing side of things in this offense. And he's got all the efficiency stats. And I mean, last week against Purdue, he throws 335 yards. The week before that against Michigan State, he throws 4 touchdowns. And he wasn't really hitting numbers like that last year. He was it was a very
He
easy
was a game
offense.
manager. He was a game
Game
manager.
manager style. They didn't ask him to do too much, just, dink and dunk here, easy throws to make. And this year, I think they're letting him loose a little bit more. Unlike what we've seen from Drew Aller, which we were like, does he actually have it in him? Or are they just saving it for the Ohio State game? And it turns out Drew Aller doesn't have it in him. No. I guess we're going to find out if J.J. McCarthy does have it in him when he has to go up against a defense that's good.
I do think that their special team is going to play a big difference or a big challenge. I think in this because Penn State 2 weeks ago, I think they had their punt return took 2 punts back or something like that. Maybe it was the game before Ohio State. I cannot remember, but so special teams is always something to be aware of in these kind of big games. So I'm interested to see what happens. Sure.
The field position, the hidden yardage there, all that's going to be important.
Yes.
But I'm going to go ahead and take Michigan in this one.
All right. I got you.
Another one that I think we're gonna have to be on the lookout for with the playoff poll is Utah-Washington. Washington is the home team in this one. They are going to have to go up against a tougher defense this time, but we also know that Utah is going to be limited offensively.
Yeah.
So it's one of Washington. I think it's one of Washington's. I should say the second of a really hard end of the season, because after this they got to go again at Oregon State, and then they host Washington State for the final game of the season. But they're getting there, Ben. They've gotten in some of these close games, but they continue to win in Washington. And I'm almost at that point where I'm ready to count Utah out, but you know how it is when you finally do count Utah out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in this game. Yeah, it's tough, but I think Penix has looked really good, and if they get a running attack going the way they did last week, yeah, dude, this offense is going to be something else. Like if they get a running game that's running for almost 150, 200 yards, dude, that and plus with this passing attack, like what are you supposed to do as a defense? So I'm expecting them to go more to the run. I think partially to save Penix from taking hits and stuff. I think just keeping him alive for a little bit, longer. But Utah's offense worries me. And so I'm going to take Washington this game. I'm going to say 38-24 Washington.
I like Washington too. I think it is a game that could be close. We did see the way that Oregon played against them. We thought that game might be close, and turns out Oregon kind of mopped the floor with them. But I do respect Oregon's defense a little bit more than Washington's. But maybe Dylan Thompson will continue to find a place in the offense. Like I told you, actually only one other game this year, it was against Oregon that he rushed for 100 yards. So it could be an ability thing, and that's just how bad USC's defense is, where it could just be like he finally found his rhythm. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Washington in this one too, and I think it's gonna stay close. I'll go ahead and give Washington 38 in this one, and I'll give Utah 28.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Let's see. Another one that's all eyes are going to be on is Ole Miss at Georgia. We've seen Georgia get into some close games, but we're also seeing the offense continue to make plays even without Brock Bowers. Carson Beck, I think, is figuring things out. But this is one of the tougher Ole Miss teams that I think we've seen in a while. Like they do have some good wins on their schedule. Yeah. They gritted out against Texas A&M last week, as I said. They've beaten LSU in that shootout. Their only loss this year is to Alabama at Tuscaloosa. But Jackson Dart, really great quarterback in this one. Carson Beck, really great quarterback in this one. This is Georgia's kind of got like a tough final stretch too, kind of like what Washington does. Having to play Missouri last week, then they got to play Ole Miss. They end the SEC schedule with Tennessee. Then they got Georgia Tech, who has showed up in some big games this year, and then they're probably going to have to play Alabama in that SEC championship game. So it's a tough stretch here for Georgia. And
I guess for me is that I think, I've just learned this year. I've chosen against, I think, Georgia twice or once. I just can't choose against Kirby Smart. Like it's just dumb. Like it's just dumb to decide you think that Georgia's going to lose to Ole Miss. And as much as I think Ole Miss has improved and I think Ole Miss is very good, they couldn't beat Alabama, and I think Georgia's better than Alabama. So yeah, I'm gonna just go with Georgia. Like I think Georgia's better than Alabama. I think Alabama, obviously they beat Ole Miss. So I'm gonna go Georgia in this game. I'm gonna go a little more low score. I'm gonna go 28-21 Georgia.
I'm going to roll with Georgia in this one too. Although one thing I've noticed from some of their bigger games is it looks like it's a little easier to run the ball in Georgia than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no more Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter-esque defensive tackles there in the middle. And Missouri, I thought they ran the ball fairly well. And Ole Miss has one of the best running backs in the country with Quinshon Judkins.
If he's healthy, though, that's the thing. Though he's always banged up. Always banged up.
So definitely has the potential to be an X factor in this game, but ultimately I think that that Carson Beck and Georgia offense are going to get things done here, and I'm going to go ahead and give them a close win too, somewhere probably in that like 28-21 range, maybe. It's going to be a good game. I think this is the game of the week for sure.
For sure.
And then this one might not affect the playoff poll and like who's gonna like be in that Final Four all that much, but I think Tennessee at Missouri is gonna be a fun game for the majority of college football fans to watch. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. I think it's two teams that are kind of resurging. Like I think a lot of people thought Tennessee was done. Like so after 13, this past year,
13 and a 14 seed, both with 7-2 records.
I think a lot of people thought Tennessee was done after last year, and it's just a one-hit wonder. I still think Missouri is maybe the better team out of the two. I think Missouri maybe has a little more upside than Tennessee. I think I'm just going to take Missouri in this one, maybe kind of in a coin flip. I think Tennessee's good. I just think maybe Missouri sneaks this one out. I think they're going to win like 38-31 Missouri.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. Tennessee's actually a 1-point favorite right now on the road.
It's going to be close.
I think Missouri is going to be the more complete team in this one too, and I think that's going to help them out. So I'll give Missouri a close win here, somewhere in like that maybe even 24-22, something like that. And then I'll just read off a couple other games that are happening, at least who the top teams are facing. So Alabama's at Kentucky. We've got Florida State hosting Miami. We've got
Ohio State versus
Ohio State hosting Michigan State. We've got Texas at TCU. And we've got Oregon hosting USC. Any upset potential there you hear?
Yeah, Michigan State over. I'm kidding. No, dude. That by the way, that Ohio State game is 31 points right now, favored. I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State wins by like 50. I want to predict this: Ohio State gives up 0 points, shutout.
A shutout, okay.
I just don't. I
don't
see
shut them out.
Michigan State's offense is trash. They're so bad. Yeah. The only one is dude. Oregon's going to beat USC by like 40. Dude, USC's defense is so bad, and even with a change in defensive coordinator, I still think Oregon puts up like 45.
The change in defensive coordinator doesn't fix the defense this week.
They're going to put up 45.
That's a long process. Yeah,
but I'm going to say this. I think Oregon puts. I'm going to bold prediction. Oregon puts up 60 against USC.
It wouldn't shock me. But I think
by the way, Caleb Williams, yeah, he's done with the Heisman. Just let's all say that now. I know we haven't got to our list yet, but I'm just going to say that now. I'm just going to make that very verbal.
I think if one team here has potential to be upset, I'm going to go ahead and say it's Texas.
Yes, for sure.
On the road at TCU. I know TCU's 4-5. It is what it is, but I've seen Texas get into some close games with the teams they probably shouldn't.
And they don't have their starting quarterback.
Yeah, so they almost got
Archie Manning, please. Archie Manning, please.
Yeah, please. The one team that I'll say on upset alert this week is Texas. I think they will win. I'm not going to go out here and say Texas wins, but yeah, it's going to be another closer game than what it probably should.
And do not be shocked if Alabama and any of these other teams jump them in the rankings next week.
All right, so on that note, why don't we discuss our top 5 teams and our power rankings, if anything has changed?
Yes, I will review them for us here. So last week, I had in my power rankings, I had Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan at 3, Washington at 4, and I had Florida State debuting in my top 5 at number 5. And then Josh kept his the same for like the 5th week in a row or 4th week in a row, whatever it was. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4, and Oregon 5. Josh, let's go. Let's just give our list. This one's less dramatic than the Heisman. So let's just give our list. Has anything changed with yours, Josh?
Mine, I believe now for the third week you said will be the same. Nothing has made me nothing from Florida State has convinced me that they belong in this poll. Obviously with Texas right now, I don't know if we're going to have Quinn Ewers the rest of the season. Obviously with Quinn, it's a totally different team, but they still haven't done anything to convince me that they need to jump. But I will say one thing. Alabama is figuring things out, Ben. Jalen Milroe is figuring things out.
It's scary.
Nobody beat them early in the season like they were supposed to. Texas A&M missed their chance. Texas obviously goes and gets them, but all the other teams that maybe had a shot didn't do it, and it's gonna cost them because Alabama has figured things out. I think they're gelling. I think Tommy Rees has figured out how to call plays specifically for Jalen Milroe, and it wouldn't shock me if at the end of the season Alabama's 12-1, the SEC champion, in my top 5 rankings and in the playoffs.
It could happen. Is it happening?
I haven't been fully convinced of it yet, but Alabama might be closer to getting into that 5th spot than say what Florida State is right now for me.
You might be right, but yeah, not happening in my book. Mine as well is staying the same. For I think the first time ever. I just don't think I keep mine the same. I just always want to change something in mine. I'm not satisfied. But no, I was thinking about putting Oregon, but Florida State, I'm giving a little benefit of the doubt. Just keep them at 5. Again, 5 for me is always rotating, but 2 weeks in a row, Florida State makes it. So the same for me this week. Now let's go over to the Heisman watch list where I think there is some shaking up, at least for me, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and read them. So last week I had at number 1 was Michael Penix Jr., 2 Bo Nix, 3 Marvin Harrison Jr., 4 Jaden Daniels, and 5 Caleb Williams. And for Josh, he had Michael Penix Jr. at 1, Bo Nix at 2, Jaden Daniels at 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, and Caleb Williams at 5. Let's go 5-1. Josh, I'm going to start this week, Josh. I'm going to start this week.
All right.
I'm switching it up. I'm about to shock some people's brains in a second here. Number 5 is no more Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has dropped out of mine. He is not in my top 5. And I know everyone's going to be in the comments saying, Ben, you're crazy. He's the best player. This is not about the best player award. Okay. It could be, but it also involves team record and his team sucks. I'm going to go Ollie Gordon at number 5. This man deserves recognition. This man is getting recognition, and this man is going to be, it's probably between him and Marvin Harrison to be that position player going to New York in December. That's number 5 for me.
Dang. My number 5 is also Allie Gordon. I wanted to make the splash. But I guess it's fair because you are the one that I think first ever mentioned Allie Gordon on this podcast anyway. So maybe it is right that you get to announce him in your rankings. But Allie Gordon is tied for 6th in the country in total touchdowns. Like I said earlier,
leads in rushing yards.
Leads all Power 5 players in all-purpose yards right now. So we're also seeing him be a difference maker in some of these big games.
Now, it depends on how Oklahoma State finishes. It depends on how they finish. I think will determine
whether he can be a finalist. Yeah. So at least for me right now, it's looking like, that is one thing we look forward to is how much of a difference maker are they in some of those big games. Yeah. And I think he's been one of the big difference makers in Oklahoma State's big wins this season. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Ollie Gordon in there at number 5 as well.
Sorry, I stole your thunder. But number 4, I do have a little switch here. Number 4 for me is Marvin Harrison Jr. I drop him down from 3. It is nothing against Marvin. I generally, the dude still had 2 touchdown catches. By the way, both those touchdown catches, remarkable catches. Like the way this man moves his body, people don't realize how hard it is to go up one angle and then completely rotate your body 180 to catch the ball. It makes it look easy, but it's not that easy. You said difference makers. Those were 2 huge catches that stretched out the lead for Ohio State. Do I think he's going to have more 100-yard games? Yes. This week he should have 150, maybe 200 yards this week. This team is bad. Minnesota, same thing. Not a great pass defense. Michigan will be the test where I think if he has a great game against Michigan, that will solidify his spot in New York. But for me, I can't punish him for scoring 2 touchdowns. The yardage wasn't there, but he still drew double teams, which then opened it up for Henderson, Abuka, some of these guys to get open in the pass game a little bit, whatever there was. So I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4.
I will say I consider dropping Marv out of my top 5 because that was the third time this season I think he's finished with under 35 receiving yards, but still finds the end zone twice, and the catches were absolutely incredible. So I'm gonna go ahead
Especially
and keep him there at 4 for me.
You would agree that first touchdown catch was ridiculous, where he did like the 180 like turnaround up over dude in his face, and then gets 1 foot somehow inbounds and then lands. It's
Yeah,
I don't know how he does it.
The plays he makes, yeah.
I just don't know how he does it. And by the way,
Crazy.
it's not like he's 5'10. He's 6'4. Like he's a huge human being. And by the way, his brother, I guess, is better than him, which is just crazy to think about in some cases. Anyways, number 3 for me, this was hard for me because Jaden Daniels was at 4 for me, and he got hurt, but he played extremely well until he got hurt. I'm going to keep him at 3. I know a lot of people might hinder me on that because I've been a big proponent. If you lose, you kind of slip in rankings for me. But it's really hard for me to penalize a guy for getting bashed in the head, which, by the way, I think that was leading with the crown of the helmet, but I'm not going to say anything about it. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm going to go Jaden Daniels at 4. Oh, sorry, 3.
I'm keeping Jaden Daniels there as well. And he's second in the country right now in points responsible for it. Like we've been maintaining all season. I mean, Caleb Williams kind of has this argument too. Both have 3 losses right now, and Caleb Williams is actually first in the country in points responsible for. So that's an area that I struggle with.
I think running the ball, though, is where the difference is. Like the difference in what Jaden Daniels does.
Jaden's contributing some rushing yards, and I know Caleb's got some athleticism where he can buy himself some time, but I also think that USC could finish with 4 or 5 losses at the end of the season, and I don't think LSU is finishing that bad.
No.
I don't know if I've ever seen someone go 7-5 and be a Heisman finalist. We have seen some 8-4 guys like Johnny Manziel get there. Yeah, of course. So Caleb may not be totally out, but I am anticipating a 7 or 8 win season for USC. So that's why Caleb's out and why I feel like I can better justify Jaden being here at 3 and Caleb not even being in my top 5.
Agreed. And number 2 for me is Bo Nix. I think he's pretty much been here the whole year for me. I just think he's solid. He shows up when he needs to, makes the plays, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Bo for me as well. Finishing right behind Jaden there for points responsible for, with being 3rd, and I believe he's also up there in maybe total yards too, or something like that, and the efficiency stats are all there too. So yeah, Bo's also got Oregon in a good spot right now for that Pac-12 championship, I think still. So Bo's 2 for me.
And let's go 3, 2, 1. Number 1 is
Michael Penix
Jr. Again, yeah, dude's a stud. He just, that lefty release is just so beautiful. He's even making plays on his feet, by the way, which he hasn't really done a lot of this year, and he's doing it now, and it's cool to see. And I think he's phenomenal. He will not be a high draft pick, but he'll be a great NFL QB one day.
Yes. I got Michael at 1. I was thinking about maybe dropping him down just because he wasn't the difference maker in that USC game. I thought it was more so Dylan Thompson, but I don't think that anybody else did anything to bump up to 1. No. So, I mean, Michael played a great game. Like, not to take anything away from him, but
I do love how people have JJ McCarthy in their top 5. I'm like, who's he played? Who's he played?
He's got all the efficiency stats,
like awesome.
Not necessarily the totals.
Yeah. So, anyways, that is our top 5, both Heisman and power rankings. Let us know in the comments what you think. But before we go today, Josh, we're going to finish up with some Cleveland Brown talk because, man, does it feel good to have that defense back, doesn't it? I mean, it was the Cardinals, so
but anytime you get a shot in the NFL, it's an accomplishment.
If you didn't watch, it was 27-0. The Browns held the Cardinals for 58 yards on 48 plays. Think about that for a second. They had 48 plays. They were held to 58 yards. Josh, thought on the game. Were you in awe of how good the defense was?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Cardinals suck.
When you consider everything that's going on in that situation, like who that Cardinals had playing stuff, you're like, yeah, if the defense is this good, they should have shut them out. But I mean, even still, shutouts are hard to come by. They don't
Impressive,
happen
dude.
that often. That was Cleveland's first shutout. I
And
can't remember when the last time they said they
2007,
got one was. Yeah. So it's
2007.
been a while. So
And think about it. And they put their backups in like the last half of the fourth quarter. So it's not like they had starters in the Browns defense. So, I mean, even then, like that's impressive.
yeah, you got to see like Myles Garrett make plays and Darius Smith make plays and Dalvin Tomlinson make
Dude looked a
plays and Shelby
freak, dude.
Harris. Like that whole defensive line was making plays. And
Sony Taki.
yes. So the other
Oh,
thing too about this game is Deshaun Watson got to come
he looked
back,
good. He
play
looked
a full
good.
game. Throws 2 touchdowns in this one. It's exactly the kind of game that you would want your
Run
starting
game
quarterback
worries
to
me.
come in for. Yeah,
Run game worries me.
a little bit. But yeah, I much rather would have had Deshaun come back for the Arizona game than the Baltimore game that's going to be happening this week. That's a tough team to come back and play against. But yeah, I think he finished the day like 19 of 30 with 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nothing flashy, but solid still at the end of the day. Both touchdowns, I believe, were
Yeah.
thrown under pressure.
What would you say, Josh, if let me ask you a question, trivia question. When was the last time that one division of the NFL had all 4 of their teams in the playoffs? When did that last happen?
It probably never happened because this is the first year or the second year you can have 7 teams in the
That would be
playoffs to even have 3 wild cards.
that would
In the
be
past, it's always been 2 wild cards.
yes. That would be correct. This will be the first time. I think it's like it would be only the second time maybe that 3 teams have even made it. So second or it might not be many times.
There's
But
been some seasons where Cincinnati, Baltimore, and
that's
Pittsburgh
true.
all made it, and we were left in the bottom. And you're like, you got to be kidding me! They all 3 get to go, and we don't.
But think about it. I'll tell you, the AFC North is the best division in football.
I don't think anybody can
Outside.
argue it right now.
They literally stat wise, they have the 2 best defenses in the NFL. Browns are 1, Baltimore's 2. Then you have a uprising in Pittsburgh. I have no idea what's going on there. That's just shocking.
Pittsburgh's just good at winning, dude. There's
I don't
nothing,
get
no
it.
player
I don't get it.
on that
Just
offense.
don't
Just
get
like they
it.
just win somehow.
Their offense looks so bad on paper. Like
Kenny
on
Pickett,
paper, it looks
man.
terrible. I did read something. By the way, speaking of, we'll get off the Browns topic for a second. C.J. Stroud. Can we finally say that he's QB1? Can we finally say that he's QB1? Young has thrown more touchdown passes to a cornerback than to most of his receivers. So, to me, guys, let's stop the debate, guys. He took a terrible team that has a very poor offensive line and not great receivers, and he's looking like a MVP. I'm not just saying that because I'm a High State fan. I'm legit saying that because Josh and I have said it since before the draft. He was QB1, and we're proven right.
Yep. I don't know how many people are gonna care about that IQ or like brain test or whatever processing information.
Dude is smart, dude. The
dude's
dude's smart.
And then I'm glad you brought that up too about the talent that's around him because I thought Carolina did a lot more in their offseason
We
to
both
surround
said
Bryce Young with talent, and
we
that
both said it.
we both thought that CJ Stroud would be the better quarterback, but we thought it might take a little bit longer, I guess, for him to get here.
And the preseason looked bad.
Considering he's throwing to Noah Brown, I think, and Tank Dell and Nico Collins, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that we give a pass to because it's like you see who he's throwing to, Justin Fields, like that's always one. It's like he has no weapons, and here's rookie CJ Stroud right here, throwing 470 yards and I think 5 touchdowns, leading the team to victory on the final drive there. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that final drive, that was like Brady-esque. That was a Brady-esque final drive. And that one throw where he throws it from like the 40 and then throws a dime between 2 defenders on like the 15-yard line it's ridiculous. Like it's phenomenal.
And I'm not going to give up on Bryce yet in year 1, but
I'm not either.
I feel very good that CJ Stroud at least is going to be the better quarterback and have the better career.
Yeah, I mean,
you always got quarterbacks linked in the draft. Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin, and another like couple big ones like Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston, who end up both kind of flopping. But there's always like 2 quarterbacks, and everybody always likes to like pick a side and be like, who's going to be the better one? And everyone always remembers who panned out, and they also usually always remember the bust too.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying Young is bad. I just think I think the things that we thought were weaknesses for Young have shown through. The height is a problem. The lack of decision making inside the pocket is a problem. When he gets outside the pocket, he's not bad. He struggles and he has happy feet, man. That man
Yeah.
does not want to stay still at all. Man,
And
he
just
just
not being able to make those NFL big time throws in college, like it was always like in the sandbox, like 10 yards in front of you in center, and never anything like fading
look what
out to the
Stroud's doing.
sidelines or anything deep. Yeah, CJ's making all the throws that like every quarterback wishes they could make, man.
Dude, it's awesome to see. I'm excited. So Josh, I will say this. There was a NFL game in Frankfurt this
There
past
was.
weekend. It was very fascinating. There was a lot of some of my players actually from my team went and saw the game, so it was kind of cool. Kind of cool to talk to them about their experience.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too that the NFL actually gave Europe a game that most fans here in America would want to get up and watch.
No, exactly.
Usually we're sending off all like these 4 and 5 win teams. Like, yeah, they'll go and sell out because it's an NFL game in Europe.
Can we also say Coach McDaniels is like the best coach of all like just personality wise.
Let me tell you
fantastic.
something. I'm not surprised that they fired that guy early, but I am surprised about that story that came out. I heard Jay Glazer report it that they get into that discussion about the Patriots in the past, and Josh McDaniel says, "Don't you ever talk about the Patriots that way." And it's like, you're a Raider right now, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like, do you even believe in your team? Are you even in it? Like that,
Yeah.
that's some of the wildest stuff, man. Like, you're supposed to be all in on the Raiders right now, and you're here defending New England and like being a Patriot, almost like this outsider in there, and having
then
no
like on
faith in
the
guys.
opposite side of it, you have the Dolphins coach, who's like the most fun guy of all time. I mean, he sprints after interviews. It's awesome. But going into this week, let's talk quick Browns prediction before we go. We'll finish up here in a second. Browns prediction this week. What's your prediction?
Yeah,
Score.
I hate getting swept by a team in division, but
I
the
do
way
too.
I mean, I'm not gonna like hold what happened in the first game, in any kind of regard for this one, just because that was when DTR and Jerome Ford were basically our quarterback and running back in that one. But I think Baltimore is really good. I think Lamar is really good, and he made some great throws in that game. But I will say this:
Don't be
I
shocked.
think that. Well, I wasn't going to say don't be shocked if Cleveland wins, but I will say I think that Baltimore took their foot off the gas a little early in that one, or the Cleveland defense just finally started figuring out what they were doing.
Yeah.
If that ends up being the case in this one, we might see a Cleveland like comeback later in the game. But if Baltimore's going to win this one, I'm going to say can't take your foot off the gas. But I think being at Baltimore, as good as their defense is, I still have like some reservations about the way the offense does things. I think Baltimore's going to come out and win this one.
Yeah, I want to take Cleveland in this. I do think if the defense played like last week, Baltimore is in real big trouble.
Yeah,
they struggle. They struggle when Jackson has to think on his feet. He's a great quarterback, but he struggles when he has to be rushed. When he can't make his own decisions, what he wants to do, that's where it kind of gets dangerous. But again, I think that defense is really good, and our offense is still shaky. So I'm going to say Baltimore wins this like 16-13. Like honestly,
I'll give Lamar a little more credit than that.
No, dude. It's not that I'm giving Lamar credit. I'm giving the Browns defense. Jeez, where's your fandom at?
I don't know. I just thought Baltimore had 24 in them.
Okay, whatever.
I think Baltimore's got 24 in them. And with Deshaun back has a game under his belt, I'll give Cleveland 19 in this one. 19 or 20, something like that.
16-13. And we'll
go 24-20 final score.
We both hope we're wrong. We both hope that we're wrong, but let's be honest. And also what scares me is that the Bengals have decided to heat up and are like extremely red hot, and it scares me.
After looking as bad as they did the first couple
of weeks. What's crazy is that in this division, like a team could finish like 10-7 and finish last place. Like it's just it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I wonder if that is mathematically possible given all the opponents that teams have to play and stuff, but
that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope you all had a great time with us today. I know I had a great time. I know Josh had
Me
a great
too.
time. It was fun. It's starting to feel more like wintry, fall wintry. I don't know, something like that. Hope you guys enjoy your time with family. I know Thanksgiving's coming up soon. I know football's around. Obviously, you have basketball. Hey, go enjoy some sports this weekend. If you've loved the episode on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell.
Kind of breaking news-ish. Did you see that the Angels are going to hire Ron Washington as manager?
So they are hiring an 80-year-old man.
Angels reportedly hire Ron Washington as next manager from the MLB Instagram. I think that's reliable.
I think so. Anyways, so that was the news update.
Yes.
But anyways, I will just once again repeat, if you do like to hear these amazing updates from Josh and how great he is at talking about news updates, then please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and let us know how much you love down below in the comments our outfits today. I'm wearing a classic Cedarville free t-shirt from Cedarville University.
I'm wearing an Mikey D Gaines Apparel Ohio Gaines hoodie.
So he's wearing a Gaines shirt, and I'm wearing a free Cedarville alumni shirt because everyone at Cedarville gets an alumni shirt, it seems like, even before you're an alumni. Anyways, I hope you guys had a great time. Also, make sure you share or with family and friends. You can like it too as well, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, until next time, we'll see ya.